household in Turin, 1955. His earliest memories were shaped by the sounds that filled his family's apartment. In the corner of the living room stood an upright piano, its keys worn from daily use. His mother, Giuliana Stelio, sang folk songs and opera arias as she cooked, her voice drifting through the apartment. His father, Francesco Einaudi, worked as a sales manager, but he loved to listen to records of Italian classics in the evenings. Music was not just a pastime in the Einaudi home, it was part of the daily rhythm. Family gatherings often centered around the piano. Ludovico's older sister, Luciana, remembers him as a quiet child, sitting for hours at the keyboard, picking out melodies he had heard earlier that day. She has described in interviews how their mother would lean over his shoulder, humming along, sometimes correcting a missed note or suggesting a new harmony. Sheet music was scattered across the dining table, a mix of opera, folk tunes, and contemporary pieces. Neighbors recall hearing the Einaudi children practicing late into the night, their laughter and the sound of the piano echoing down the stairwell. The household was modest, but the atmosphere was rich with encouragement. Relatives brought gifts of music books and old 78 RPM records, and family friends from the local choir would sometimes visit. These visits exposed Ludovico to a wide range of styles, from traditional Italian melodies to early avant-garde experiments. Evenings often ended with everyone gathered around the piano, singing together. This blend of formal and informal music making planted the idea that music could be both serious and joyful. By the time Ludovico turned 6, he was asking for lessons. The family's piano became his first classroom, and the living room his first stage. The desire to understand the instrument more deeply would soon lead him beyond the walls of his childhood home. Formal music lessons quickly led Ludovico Einaudi beyond his family's living room. At age 13, he entered the Conservatory Giuseppe Verdi in Milan, one of Italy's most respected music schools. The conservatory's curriculum was strict. Counterpoint, theory, and the works of Beethoven and Brahms filled his days. Teachers like Franco Micheli drilled him in technique and discipline. Recital programs from this period show Einaudi performing standard classical repertoire, earning solid marks for accuracy and expression. But something didn't quite fit. While his peers chased the latest avant-garde trends, Einaudi found himself drawn to melody and repetition. He admired the clarity of folk songs as much as the complexity of modern scores. By the late 1970s, his sketches began to reflect this tension. One conservatory evaluation from 1978 noted, "Technically competent, but relies excessively on diatonic repetition and lacks the contrapuntal complexity expected of a contemporary composer." The message was clear. His instinct for simplicity set him apart, and not always in a good way. A turning point came through his relationship with Luciano Berio, a leading figure in Italian experimental music. Berio's mentorship opened doors to new techniques, including electronic music and unconventional forms, where he attended masterclasses with Leonard Bernstein and Gunther Schuller. Yet even in these progressive circles, Einaudi's minimalist leanings raised eyebrows among some faculty. Academic skepticism persisted, but Einaudi's confidence in his own path grew stronger. By the time he completed his diploma in 1982, Einaudi had the technical foundation of a classical pianist and composer, but his creative direction was already shifting. The conservatory had given him tools, but it was his urge to break from tradition that would soon define his music. Nuvole Bianche begins with a simple, repeating arpeggio, a left-hand ostinato that barely shifts as the right hand draws out a gentle melody. This approach, built on repetition and slow harmonic change, became Einaudi's signature. The piece, released in 2004, now stands among the most streamed classical tracks in the world. On Spotify, it has surpassed 300 million plays. On YouTube, performances and official videos together have drawn more than 210 million views. Divenire, released 2 years later, expands this formula. The piano is joined by swelling strings, each new layer added in small steps. The structure is clear and direct, with a steady pulse and harmonies that linger. This clarity and predictability make both tracks instantly recognizable and easy to return to. Streaming platforms reward music that fits into daily life, and Einaudi's pieces offer just that: a mood, a space to think, a reliable background. His catalogue now tops 3 billion streams, a figure that dwarfs many of his classical peers. The numbers reveal something simple. Einaudi's style, shaped by restraint and repetition, is perfectly suited to the habits of online listeners. Demand for tickets soared as Einaudi's online popularity spilled into the real world. In 2024, his tour grossed 27 million euros across 63 shows, with 92% of venues sold out. Promoters described lines stretching around the block from Barcelona to Tokyo. At London's Royal Albert Hall, every seat was filled within hours of tickets going on sale. Tour managers credit his streaming success for driving this surge, noting that many buyers were first-time concert-goers, drawn in by a single track on a playlist. The reach extended far beyond the concert hall. By early 2025, Einaudi's music had been licensed for more than 120 films, television series, and major advertising campaigns. A sync supervisor from a leading agency explains that his tracks are chosen to build emotional intensity quickly without distracting from dialogue. The numbers back this up. His pieces have appeared in everything from Oscar-nominated dramas to primetime commercials, with licensing fees that often rival those of pop hits. This combination of touring revenue and media placements has turned Einaudi into a rare figure, an artist whose digital streams translate directly into ticket sales and screen time. For industry insiders, he represents a new model, someone who bridges the gap between online playlists and live events, and whose melodies travel just as easily from earbuds to cinema speakers. Behind the scenes, Einaudi's rise was powered by a modern music industry machine. His scores and recordings are published by Decca and BMG, two of the world's largest classical distributors. Their reach puts his music in sheet music shops, streaming catalogues, and film libraries across dozens of countries. This infrastructure guarantees that a new Einaudi release appears on every major platform, from Spotify playlists to international concert programs. Industry support is only one part of the equation. Within the classical world, opinions about Einaudi's music split sharply. Supporters praise his ability to reach people who rarely listen to classical music. One fan, quoted in a 2023 Decca press release, called his work the soundtrack to daily life, easy to play, impossible to forget. Critics, on the other hand, argue that the music's simplicity comes at the cost of depth. Alexandra Viala, writing for Le Monde, described Einaudi's style as more ambient soundtrack than symphonic journey. Among his peers, Einaudi stands out for both his popularity and his approach. Max Richter, Olafur Arnalds, and Niels Fram all work in the same post-classical space, blending minimalism with modern electronics. Yet Einaudi's streaming numbers and ticket sales consistently outpace theirs, helped by his partnership with global labels and his focus on melody over experiment. Supporters see this as proof of his universal touch. Critics see a formula that favors mood over musical challenge. Both sides agree on one thing: Einaudi has changed the way classical music reaches the world. A young pianist interviewed for a 2024 Conservatory profile describes learning Divenire as a rite of passage. It is simple enough to approach, yet demanding in its subtle phrasing. Teachers point out that his music, with its repeating patterns and clear melodic lines, offers students a way to focus on expression over technical fireworks. Dr. Alessandra Lattanzi, a musicologist at the University of Milan, notes that Einaudi's style has created what she calls a horizontal focus, where the emotional journey unfolds through repetition and texture, not traditional development. This approach has inspired a new wave of composers who value mood and accessibility. In online forums and masterclasses, young musicians often cite Einaudi as the reason they began composing or performing at all, crediting his work with opening doors to creativity that once felt closed. In 2016, Ludovico Einaudi's album Onde reached #1 on the UK Classical Albums chart. This milestone put him in the same commercial league as figures like Philip Glass, whose minimalist works also crossed over into mainstream awareness. But to judge Einaudi's place in music history, it helps to set clear criteria. 5 points will guide the evaluation. First, the originality of his musical language. Second, the technical skill and training behind his compositions. Third, the scale and diversity of his audience. Fourth, the influence he has had on other musicians and the broader piano repertoire. And fifth, the balance between emotional accessibility and musical complexity. These benchmarks reflect both the cultural impact he achieved and the critical debates that still surround his work. With these tools in hand, the question of Einaudi's true standing comes into sharper focus, ready for a final assessment. Today, Einaudi's music fills concert halls and streaming charts alike. In an era where accessibility often outweighs tradition, his impact is undeniable. The real question remains, was Ludovico Einaudi a leading figure in modern music or a product of changing audience preferences? Let me know what you think below.